Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Mike and I am the Dungeon Master over at twitch.tv/HowINerd. We currently run two games on the channel, Tabletop Tavern, which is our flagship epic adventure using the Pathfinder system. We also have Nexus 0, which is our cyberpunk adventure set in the 1980s Boston using the Savage World system. My community has asked me for tips and tricks how to be a better DM. So I thought I'd put this video together to showcase how I try to elevate myself and set myself up for success before a game. So stay tuned for our 5 tips and a bonus tip at the end.
I'm gonna knock you out. Knock you out.
All right, everybody, let's jump into it. Okay, so tip number 1, get to know your players. Start off with a session 0. Session 0 is a great way to sit down with your players and come up with some ideas for what you think they would enjoy, and they can flat out tell you what they enjoy at that point. You know, as a DM, one of the things is to draw information out of the party. So sit down and talk with them in the session 0. Ask them flat out, what kind of campaigns do they enjoy? Are they a more combat-oriented party where they like focusing on the mechanics of combat and the intricacies of that? Do they like a more political campaign in a city-type setting where, you know, they can play a house versus a house and there's a lot of intrigue? What about roleplay? Do they like a heavy influence on roleplay or an intercommunication roleplay in the party? These are great questions to figure out so that you can mold a world that they as a players enjoy and you as a DM enjoy. 3 of the questions that I like asking prior to we getting started in a campaign, and this tip comes strictly from Jerry over at Penny Arcade. I've had the pleasure of talking to him at PAX at almost every year I've gone to PAX East. He asks his players before they begin, and I've adopted this as, you know, something that I do every time. What is your secret motivation for joining the party? It's a great open-ended question that, you know, that it makes the player think about, that get into their character's head and think about what their motivation for joining the party is. Who have they wronged in the past? So this is an amazing question because this helps them create the backstory, and it helps you as a DM be able to make callbacks to that backstory. Maybe that person that appears in their past that they've wronged, it can get brought in as an NPC in the campaign later down the road. It's a great way to flush that world out and bring, you know, another element or layer to the player. And this third one that Jerry asked is a great one. What is something you would kill for? Now let's think about this for a second. What better way to cause drama in the party? And let's face it, Dungeons & Dragons is about creating that drama and that level of tension for the players. Maybe they're in a hard spot where they're trying to rescue the kingdom and they're trying to get to this one item that will save the world or the kingdom. All right, guys, tip number 2, give your scenes flavor and flush them out for the players. Painting a picture for your players heightens the immersion, and the best way I have found to do that is to play on as many of the 5 senses as I possibly can. We are visual people, but adding layers to that visual aspect, especially when you're in the theater of the mind and you're trying to outline and convey to the players the exact setting of the scene, it's best to start with visual and then play on the other aspects of it. As you walk into the dimly lit room, shadows dance over discarded remains of what used to be a torture chamber. Several instruments of torture are placed strategically around the room in what appears to be an assembly line of cruelty. Now we've laid it out for the players, you know, so they have a base picture in their mind of what the room looks like. Let's move on to smell. The smell of smoke from the torches adorning the walls is mixed with a musty smell of stale air, along with something cloyingly sweet. So now the players have an idea of what the room smells like, and adds another layer to that image in their head. It also you can also set a little bit of intrigue or suspicion, like I did with that last sentence. indicate what they hear. Would Star Wars be Star Wars without John Williams' score on it? So I'd like to do something like the creak of metal rubbing against the rock draws your attention to the manacles on the wall and the bones of the skeleton still in place as they scrape back and forth against the wall. Again, we're continuing to layer things on, and now that we've discovered another visual part, we also have the sounds of the chain swinging back and forth along the wall and scraping, as well as the bones of the skeleton. Touch is a lot more difficult because you're relying on the player at that point to actually reach out and touch something. You know, as us as DMs, we don't want to, to force the players into doing something. But if they go and, they touch like one of the torture instruments, you can start to describe it at that point. The rough nature, or the paint flaking off, or you can describe it as cold, warm. These are great things you can do to set up that another layer of realism in that scene and create that picture in the theater of the mind. Tip number 3. There's so many different ways to DM it, and you really have to play to your strengths. So I encourage you to look at the different ways out there and find one that really works for you. Some people are really good at winging things and coming up with content on the fly, and some people do much better when they prepare. As a DM who has to do this live on stream, I tend to do the over-prepare method. I try to be ready for anything the party can throw at me. But as you guys know, as DMs, you lay out plans and you come up with this plan, and you come up with what you think the party's going to do, but they tend to do the opposite of that, or come up with something completely new that you didn't anticipate. I personally have a deep respect for DMs out there who can come up with amazing content just on the fly. And I've had to learn to do that, especially on a live stream, because you don't want to sit there with dead air and then look around and not knowing what you're doing. But I've come a long way to do that. But I do have a couple things that I do to try to set myself up for success. One of the most important for me is having random encounters ready to go. I have on average 20 to 30 random encounters for all different kind of situations and different CR levels ready to go. I have the maps prepared. We use Fantasy Grounds, so I have the maps prepared ahead of time with the tokens put on them. So all I have to do is drop them in the combat tracker, drop the players in the combat tracker, and we're good to go. However, that has helped me immensely, and I think that lends really well to somebody who's playing in person as well. You can make a stack, you pull it out, and you're good to go with a random encounter. I also have 2 sites up at all times. I have a name generator because, if somebody walks up to an NPC, they're like, can I find somebody in town who is a blacksmith? Of course, yeah. Blacksmiths are in most towns. They walk up to the NPC. Hi, my name is XYZ, and then I have to on the fly come up with a name for this NPC. So what I do is I have this site, and I'll put it in the link below, and I'm going to outline in a couple minutes and show you how I do it. But I have this site up on one of my other monitors, and you can kind of anticipate when, the second somebody says, I want to try to find this NPC, I go to the site, I click the button, and it generates a name for me. I also have a second site I use that is a random personality generator. So NPCs are one of those things that are hard because you want to flush them out and you want to give some life to them, especially if it's somebody that's going to be reoccurring. So I have another site, and again, I'll post it in the comments below, but it has a random personality generator, and I'll show you guys in just a second as well. All right, so guys, this is Don John. This is our fantasy name generator. It's really easy to use. You can come up with common name, monstrous names, etc. So you just hit that. Human male names, dwarvish, elvish, and halfling. You can keep on hitting the select button until you find a name that works for you. All right, guys, so this is RanGen. I use this personality generator to help me on the fly come up with a personality for an NPC or somebody that's going to be in the game for a while. So I change it from simple to detailed, and you hit generate, and it comes up with this personality type. and it helps me assign this quickly to an NPC on the fly. So it's not just, hey, this is Mr. Blacksmith. And I can take this after the show, and especially if this NPC is going to be around for a while, I can take this and I can drop it into right into the profile for that NPC. All right, everyone. Tip number 4. Plot holes are going to happen. One of the biggest problems I had early on in my DM career was worrying way too much about plot holes. Listen, as a DM, even though I do this live on Twitch and certainly try my best to avoid them, it is going to happen at some point. I do not have a team of writers behind me checking for continuity. I do, however, have an audience who will absolutely point it out to me, as a lot of them are really invested in the story. But as a DM, you have 2 great, amazing tools to help you fix these plot holes. Magic. At least in a fantasy world, magic is a great band-aid for holes in a tabletop RPG. Some integral item to the story has been destroyed or stolen, all is lost. Thankfully it's not, because with magic, you can bring it back into existence. This is a story, a grand story for your players, and fixing those mistakes with mystical means can add to that story. Divine intervention, you have a benevolent wizard that wants to help. You need to bring somebody back from the dead. Listen, it's happened to the best of us, and magic is a great way to fix that. Retconning it. All right, so let's think about this. The unicorn that you needed to save has been destroyed. So you go back and you find a way to make it so it's staying true to the story, but you trying to find a way to okay, well, maybe that the unicorn wasn't actually dead. Maybe the unicorn isn't the only way to get to where they need to go. But this plays into the above, going back and changing, a plot hole through magic, through retconning. There's several different ways to fix those, but I don't think it's something that you should worry about, especially as a new DM. It's going to happen. Roll through it, adapt to it, and make changes on the fly, or after the fact that will, correct those issues for you. Tip number 5, and this is probably my second most favorite on this, and I do this all the time. It's called the secret roll. It's evil as a DM. It causes fear in your players and creates drama and uncertainty with them. So that naturally makes it great. Since I'm live and use Fantasy Grounds, it's easy to make a roll and have the results hidden. I do this in several scenarios. Is the party walking through a dungeon and playing a bit loose? Roll a hidden d20, and when the players ask for what it's for, oh, nothing, continue. That roll was for nothing, but it throws them off. Did the players just meet a weary traveler on the road? You see me do another hidden roll. It instantly adds a layer of tension to that scene. Because now they're thinking, oh, is this really just a weary traveler on the road, or is this a mimic, or a were person or something of that nature? It adds that different layer to that scene. Another application is hiding a player's role so that you don't meta spoil the game for them. For example, passively rolling a spot check against somebody's stealth check behind the scenes, it does alert them that something's going on. But if I ask a player to roll a notice check and they roll in the middle ground, or they can metagame and based on the result of their roll. So if you roll it behind, or the DM screen, or you roll it hidden, that opposed check, it creates drama, it creates tension, and because they can see that roll, or they can hear that roll if you're face to face, but they don't know what it's about. It plays into the first one perfect. I absolutely love using this mechanic, especially if somebody's in a high tense situation. But conversely to that, if they're in a situation where it's at ease and stuff, it can bring that tension back into the fight or into the scene. All right, our bonus tip for the week, right up there. Change the way mechanic works. And this is especially good when you're playing with players who have a lot of experience in the world. Listen, a lot of people have fought zombies before. When a player sees a zombie, no matter how much they try, they still in their brain they meta a little bit about a zombie, right? So what if you do if the player hits them with a fire weapon, it heals them this time? You've taken a mechanic that's ingrained in somebody that just simply known, and you've changed the mechanic. What if these zombies are healed by fire, but they're hurt by cold, in a cold based attack? It's turning that on its end. What happens if a player walks into a room, it's a dark room, and they cast light? All right, and you want to add drama to the scene. Okay, the light comes on this time, but it's pink. Why? You literally watch their faces change, and they're like, "What? Why is my light pink? What's going on? What's going on? Can I get a spell check to see why it's pink?" You're taking something that is, somebody has a clear understanding how it works, and you're turning it upside down, causing drama and confusion for the players. I strongly suggest you use this mechanic when you're playing with very seasoned or veteran players, because it turns them on their end. It brings that back to, that newness back to life, and that fear of the unknown. It makes your players not take for granted that the monster standing in front of them is the same as the monster they fought last week. Everybody, thanks for watching my video on my 5 tips and my bonus tip on how to be a better DM, or how I look to elevate myself as a DM. I hope this helps you out. As if you enjoyed the video and you got something for it, let us know in the comments below. Also, let us know your best tips and tricks to elevate yourself as a DM as well. Maybe put your favorite one down below. Let us know which one your favorite tip is below. You can also tune in every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time to check out Tabletop Tavern 1 right up there. That's our our Pathfinder fantasy game that we play live, as well as Neural Nexus Zero, which is our cyberpunk adventure using the Savage World system set in a 1980s Boston. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you soon.